Welcome back to the National Post Politics Bureau. Chris Nardi, we're halfway through the election now. It has flown by. We thought we would check in with the polling numbers, and also we've been tracking the betting markets, the prediction markets, to see what they think. Polling-wise, Chris, we've seen it kind of solidify. We have most pollsters showing the Liberals around 44-ish%, and the Conservatives around 38%.
Yep.
The NDP somewhere between 9 to 11%. That seems to have settled now. We've got 2 weeks to go, so that doesn't mean that'll be what it is on election day.
Yep.
Predictively, though, predictions markets tend to show us where we might go. What are they saying? We've been looking at Polymarket.
Yep.
That's moved in the last week, hasn't it?
It has. In fact, if you look at the Polymarket graph, and so Polymarket, for those who aren't aware, is basically a market where people can, in a form, bet, right? In a way, bet by buying into odds of, we think, for example, will Carney win or will Pierre Poilievre win, and it assigns a value depending on what people are buying. And so in a way, it's kind of betting, right? And what's been interesting is watching the course of time, the Liberal and Conservative lines just opposite flip. It happens more or less in March, just as Carney gets elected Liberal leader. The graph just forms an X. The chances that bettors on Polymarket see the Conservatives winning just drops, and almost, well, it is quite literally a reflection on the other side. The Liberal fortunes just kind of skyrocket and become more or less what the Conservatives were at when chances were when they were leading by 20 points in the polls, which is kind of ironic in a way because, as you mentioned, as of now, the Liberals are leading by maybe 6, 5, 7 points, depending on the poll. But bettors on Polymarket say, no, we think that the chances are basically just as strong for the Carney to win now than we thought Pierre Poilievre did when it was still a Justin Trudeau Liberal Party, and the Conservatives were leading by 20 points. So very bullish. They're very bullish on Mark Carney right now.
Yeah. Let's break that down a little bit, because I know a lot of Conservatives look at Polymarket, and I think they might be overstating how much it's saying the Liberals are going to win, because there's some fatalism going on in Conservative world. But if you look at that, you can roughly assess that as a 25% chance that Poilievre wins, which sounds low, but it does mean 1 in 4 times he wins, which is, like that. Those odds are better than Rory McIlroy winning the Masters on Sunday. So I think that's worth remembering, that even though it says Liberals are favorite, it's not like it's a lock at this point, and people are still betting on Poilievre to maybe win this thing. And actually, we were looking at the odds, the actual betting odds from Vegas. They're not quite as heavy in Carney's favor right now, right?
They're interesting. I think the betting odds, and you and I follow these. To be clear, we will and never have bet on federal politics, and but we do like watching them. And
This is just for fun.
This is just for fun. We have fun. We don't know if you have fun, but we have fun. But what has been fascinating is even the bookies in Vegas have been increasingly really strong on Carney winning. And so we talked about this in a previous video, but maybe 3 months ago, back in December, at kind of the worst part for the Liberals, Chrystia Freeland had just resigned, some would say, stabbed Justin Trudeau in the back. The party was in shambles. Conservatives were leading about 20 points in the polls. And at that point, Vegas, through, one market I was following as FanDuel, the application, had the Liberals, they were offering basically 17 to 1 odds. So if you put in $1 on the Liberals winning the next election, it would pay out $17. And to give you an idea, that is they think that is incredibly low chances that the Liberals win the election, because the Conservatives...
At the Masters, that's a guy you've never heard of.
That is like your uncle has joined the PGA Tour because he won some sort of draw, and they're like, what are the chances he wins? They were close to 17 to 1. Those are truly the NDP numbers. But in this particular case, now, fast forward barely 4 months, and the Liberals are heavy favorites by Vegas. So if you were to put $1, and we talked about $1 earlier, in December, for the Liberals would have paid 17 if they won. Now if you put in $1, you get 29 cents. In profit, whereas the Conservatives, who were heavy favorites at the time, now if you put in $1, you'll get $2.45 back. They are underdogs. Again, the NDP, the Bloc, ironically, the NDP and the Bloc are considered to have the same odds of forming government, 75 to 1.
That's great. Even though the Bloc has literally zero chance?
Literally zero chance of forming government. But ultimately, any case where people are putting money where their mouth is in terms of what they think the electoral fortunes are, feel like the Liberals are a done deal. And interestingly enough, even on FanDuel, where historically the last 2 elections, the Liberals have won a minority government, the Conservatives, as we know, have won a higher portion of the popular vote. Well, right now on FanDuel, the odds suggest that the Liberals will also win the popular vote by a much higher, chance. Anyways, the chances are much stronger that they do compared to the Conservatives, which would, we'd have to go back to the majority government the Liberals won in 2015 to get that.
Right. Little bleak for Conservatives. I will say, though, for anyone who's conservative watching this and wants a little bit of hope, the New York Times expectation was 30% for Donald Trump in 2016. And he won. So, you're not out of the game yet. Chris, thanks for being here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.